All right, we are up and running, and we got a few seconds before the top of the hour, but we might as well just get at it. Welcome to the Silicon Valley Influence, everybody. My name is Brian Sparks. I'm an executive communication coach and business coach with Heroic Voice Academy. The goal of this program is to speak with Silicon Valley leaders and flush out conversational frameworks and insights so that you can accelerate your influence to build trust, connection, and social capital. The format of the show is to build around 7 leadership questions. We pitch these questions to our guests, who then help you listen for the clues that frame the mindset to be influential. Today I have Zoe Wu from Plug and Play. And Zoe, I'm pumped that you're with me today. You've been with Plug and Play for around 4 years. You've seen a ton of startups come through and look for the resources and the guidance in order to be successful and sustainable. So you have a wealth of information. We've been friends for a few years now. And again, I feel like people are just going to be able to be that fly on the wall and hear two friends talking about the startup world. And I'm pumped to talk to you. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be here.
Good. So could you just kind of ramp everybody up really quickly? Could you give a little elevator pitch on what you do and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Zoe, and I was born and raised in China. I came to United States in 2016 for my master's, and then after I graduate, I joined Plug and Play, and I've been with Plug and Play for 4 years. And for those of you that don't know about Plug and Play, it is a global startup accelerator and also a VC firm. It is one of the most active VCs in Silicon Valley. And my role at Plug and Play is initially when I just joined, I was a community manager managing our startup community. And over the years, my responsibility expanded, and now I am managing our accelerator program. We have it twice a year for 3 months each. And I'm also working with our corporate partners. So we have a corporate innovation model where we work with Fortune 500 companies. They come in and we find the best, the most advanced technologies, introduce the startups to them. So I'm kind of now playing a role as a bridge between with industry and our startup community.
So you're awesome. So again, you've spent a lot of time with me when I was at my previous employer, chatting about the startup. And the question I loved asking you, just to kind of run people up into what we're going to be talking about today, is what was your interest as you kind of made the transition from China to the States, went to school, and then landed in the startup world? What attracted you to being in that world?
I love working with entrepreneurs. I think that's the number one thing. I love to work with this group of people. They're extremely intelligent and they're trying to solve problems and make the world a better place. I just think the energy is extremely positive. That's the motivation for me. And I knew that since I was in China, that I wanted to work in a very dynamic community. And then I think there's the startup community is the best place to be. So, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that community, because you touched a word that I love. I love the startup community. You think of the scientific community and how they really, there's a little bit of competition, right? Because everyone's trying to, make the world a better place, push their product. But there's really, I mean, in your environment with the Plug and Play, there's really this heart to help build one another. What do you think is so important about having a community in order to thrive as a leader and a startup?
I think the number one benefit of being in a community and is that you get a lot of resources. Like you know someone, and someone knows someone, and then you by knowing these people, you get access to a lot of people, a lot of things that you don't even know. Um, a big part of being in a community is you exchange resources. And the second thing is having a community, then you build camaraderie. A lot of times, the challenges that you're facing is not unique, and knowing it's not unique, as someone else is having the same challenge and they're coping with it and helping each other on this journey is very, very valuable.
Oh, I love that. So whether you're an individual kind of transitioning from the corporate world into the startup, and you get into the startup world and you're growing your business, there's always adversity. What do you think are some of the biggest adversities for a startup to get off the ground in your experience?
Um, I think the biggest, there are many. I think really it depends on the founders, their background, their story. But a big one overall is if the startup, if the founders, they can identify and find the best people to work with them and then maintain them, like keep them in the company. I think that's the number one. Like most of the successful startups I've seen, the founders or the core team, they're extremely good at finding the best talents and then have them work with them in the long term. So I think it's an extremely important quality to have as a founder.
I love that. Now I'm going to kind of roll it back and ask a little bit about you, Zoe, because you see that as one of their challenges, getting the right people, building the right team. Now you said that you made the leap from your home country in China, came over to the States. You really had to find your own way. When you were making that transition, what were some of and that's a big leap from China to the States. What were some of the adversities that you faced, and then how did you overcome them? Was it similar to how the startups deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious one is language and culture. That's a big one, and it takes a long time to get used to and to really adapt. I think for me, the most important thing is being resilient and then not and be patient because for a lot of things, like as a non-native speaker, I'm facing every day is language. Like I know I'm still on my way, but I used to feel frustrated sometimes when I just came here in school for a while. I couldn't follow the lectures just because it's like a different level of English. I never really spoke English when I was in China, but all of these, I think, it builds character in a way that you don't give up, and then you're consistent and you keep improving, and just don't let things get you down. Just keep going.
I love that challenge. That is so true. I recognize that a lot with the startups that I deal with. Like they're really smart, right? I mean, you can land in a school, you can land in a business. And I asked you that cultural question because years ago when I got into Silicon Valley, I've lived in San Jose all my life, but I'm talking about the startup world. There is like a language, there is a certain culture about the startup world that parallels your transition from China to the US. And I've noticed that the leaders that do well have that resilience. They really know how to find the resources and take the time to understand people, and that seems to be their number one priority. And then back to the point is you have really smart people that could have the best product, but they don't have that quality. What are some of the things that, I mean, you talk about the resilience being key. What are some of the downfalls of startups and launching a company that you see routinely with these companies?
Um, for startups, um, it's not very common, but I've definitely met startups that are they get defensive when they get feedback from their product from their clients. It's a very natural reaction, but I've definitely met startups. I think a big part is be extremely and just you have to have a lot of self awareness and then really to adjust yourself, constantly adapt to your customers, clients, or feedback overall from the community, and keep improving. So that's the thing I would think of.
So right now you're dealing with a cohort. Uh, what are the resources that you routinely bring in from a administrative standpoint versus people? Right, resources are important, community important, but what are some of the biggest other than people resources that people need to learn about, startups need to learn about as they're looking to find stability?
For us, building a program, a lot of it is really identify what startups are looking for and build a community. When it comes to people, a lot of times it's just not just about the connection itself, it's about the expertise these people bring in that can add value to our startups. So I would say like find the right expertise. For example, for our program here, all of our startups are SaaS B2B. So as time goes, we got more and more familiar and on this area. Everything that we provide is specifically SaaS B2B, like SaaS B2B sales, SaaS B2B scaling. It's very different. It's still part of the startup journey, but it can be different. You really need people who have these niche expertise to help them.
So not to get too bogged down in what plug and play offers in the process. What I'm curious about now to kind of turn the page is once they go through the experience with PMP or get to know you or network, and they're now out on their own. What is usually where do they go from there? Are these companies that have traction, or are they still in the process of building a prototype? I'm sure it's all different, but once they're kind of cut loose from the program, what do you see the next step being for these companies?
So for us, our program, the nature of our program is for business development. So, and then for the startups, I'm only talking about B2B startups. I'm only talking about startups in this space. A lot of times to close a deal takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So meaning when they were in our program, they were kind of like in a very beginning introduction page that we connecting them with their potential clients. And for the rest of the time, once they leave the program, is a lot about follow up and a lot about like warm the relationship and then potentially close a POC or eventually commercial agreement in the end. So I would say after the program for a lot of startups is a lot of it. It's just like their team proactively following up with the customers, listen to their needs, and then provide the solutions for them.
Nice. Okay. So again, I'm gonna come. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Not if you have one on your mind, but I'm curious if you do you have a desire to start a business at any point in your life?
Probably, yeah. I think that anyone who works in the startup world would dream that, one day I might have my own startup doing something.
What do you think it would be right now if we could just dream? What do you think you would get into?
Um, I'm really into visual type of startups, like maybe AR, VR, or recently I saw a startup in San Francisco. They're doing that it's more of like art tech. So these are the areas I'm really interested in. But I also like from more of uh, career perspective, like if you want to get into an industry that is growing really fast, like automation is a good one. I've seen a lot of automation startups as more and more companies are getting to their digital transformation journey. I see there are a lot of cool solutions there. So, yeah.
How do you so you mentioned two different worlds here. So automation is becoming the new hot sector. How do you think building relationships and automation are going to kind of come together? I mean, I know that you want to have a healthy pipeline, develop relationships, but how do you think? I mean, is that a tough question where you see the intersection of personal relationship and automation crossing over? Do you see that really taking off?
Yeah, I mean, when you work in a startup community, you meet a lot of people, and then you can learn from them. Like, for example, I have a friend who started automation startup and recently was acquired by one of the major players on the market. And I actually had a conversation with him yesterday. We're just talking about overall the market, what it is like, what are the newest solutions out there, how do people deploy it in their industry, in their organization. You would meet people, like if you're interested in a certain topic, you meet people, and then he introduced me to other experts in that area. So yeah, you just kind of step by step getting into that world.
If someone came to you and they go, "Oh, interesting, you're in the startup world. I have an idea." Uh, what would be the very first thing that you would recommend to somebody who had an idea do?
Build the product first, to build a prototype at least, and then start from there
And then
and
start
try
from
to
there
get a client. Yeah, build a prototype and try to get a client.
and try to get a client.
Yeah.
So all the stuff about, well, let's get a business plan, let's get all the paperwork in order, let's think about it, build a product and just trot it out there and test it is your recommendation.
Yeah, build a prototype and get a client. That would be my my first recommendation.
So just go for it, because I really believe that a lot of people have great ideas, and I think we hold ourselves up. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, whether it's someone has a good idea and they don't know what to do next, or they can stand in their own way by, I see it in pitches all the time, much like you said earlier, they don't listen to the customer and are just too narrow-minded. So you're really speaking towards this just go for it mentality and let it kind of unfold. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you have a good idea, the first thing if I have a good idea, the first thing I would do is I would ask myself, can I make the idea come true by myself? Like if I want to build a new Tinder, basically the different version, I would ask myself, can I code? Can I just do the most basic, just come up with even like a beta version? If I can, then I will ask myself, do I know someone who's really good who would be willing to work on that with me? And then I will be the business person going out, pitching and then getting resources, and then he or she will be the person who can actually build the product, and then that person and me will be the core team, and from there we can extend. Because the most successful startups I've seen, they usually in the core team, they have a tech person who knows in and out of the product, and they have a business person who can go out and sell, like including getting funds, getting investment, getting money in, constantly pour into the business. In very rare case, you see like two qualities combined in one person. That is a very, very strong founder. But it's fine if you only have one side of it, but you want to find someone who can compensate, and then that you can create a great team.
That's golden. So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Zoe, are you telling me that in order for someone to be success, you need the tech side and the communication side? What is it that a great communicator has that you think that makes the connections in sales with people, with investors, with resources? What are some of those qualities?
Yeah. So when I say tech, I really mean product, because we're in Silicon Valley. Everyone has a tech startup. So, that tech is the product. When it comes to the communication side, you want to communicate with people in a way, you have to be able to tell a good story. Like a lot of people don't know the nitty gritty details of the tech, and they would forget about it. 30 minutes after the conversation. So you want a really good storyteller, a good communicator, to tell them in a way that the story can stick with them, and then they can, very likely when you go and sell to someone, you have to rely on that person to sell to someone else, because there's no, a lot of times you don't get to communicate with the buyer directly. You might communicate with someone under them, so you rely on that person to pass your story forward, and that's a big challenge usually for a lot of tech startups. You have to be able to really understand your customers, listen to them, know what they're looking for, and tell your story in a very efficient way that they remember, and then they can resell it for you within their team.
Does the communicator also give the pitches, or would you say the founder gives the pitch, or is it a hybrid? Is it both?
Like I said, sometimes I've met a few founders. They know their technology in and out, and they're great communicator. But most of the cases, what I observe is like usually the product and tech person is just very focused on developing the product, and then the business person, he goes out and talk with investors and clients, etc. Wait, sorry, what's your question again?
So yeah, you have the founder who has the tech background, right? And then you're recommending that the next person they get is the business development person. So when they're giving the pitch, is it, you gave the example of it being a hybrid of the same person, but should a founder who doesn't communicate as clearly as a business development person kind of yield to the communicator rather than getting up on the stage themselves and pitching the idea?
Oh yeah, I think in a startup, everyone needs to know how to sell. Like even if you are an office manager, usually a startup doesn't have an office manager, but like anyone, even if you're not a typical in a sales role, you need to know how to sell, because startups, you don't have a lot of resources to hire that many people for specific role. Like engineers, you need to know how to sell everyone in the company.
Yeah, so it sounds like not only pitching it to investors, you need to sell it to your team, sell it to the company, sell it to the customers. It's a constant messaging in order to be congruent for success. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Zoe, we're coming to the end of our show. I would love people to connect with you. You're an amazing individual, amazing resource in Silicon Valley. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Just look for my name, Zoey Yi Wu, plug and play. You will find me. I think that's the best way. I check my LinkedIn on a daily basis. So if there's any new messages or connections come in, I'll check, and then we can connect from there.
All right. So any final words for aspiring startups who may be listening to this at some point, what they should do, takeaways? I mean, what we've heard today is just amazing. I'm sure they're going to watch this on, and this will be on YouTube in the future. If those of you want to watch it again and pick out all of Zoe's nuggets, you can watch it there. But Zoe, any final words of wisdom from the startup world?
Since we're Brian, you and I will work together to help our startups improve their communication and pitch, then maybe I'll just land there. Again, I think it's extremely important, just like knowing how to tell a good story, no matter what you do, no matter which role you're in, because that's just like one of the most important, I would say, quality to have. Whatever company you work in, and is particularly crucial in a startup environment. I would just say communication is like a piece of muscle. Like I always say, the more you practice, the more you get out of it. And then trying to really don't underestimate the power of it, and keep developing and keep growing. And yeah.
That's a perfect segue. So, if you're interested if those of you listening, if you're interested in growing your communication skills, uh, on Thursday, Anthony Lee and I run a Heroic Voice Academy, a presentation gym. It's also available through Plug and Play if you're in the cohort, I believe. But it's on LinkedIn every Thursday from 12 to 1. If you'd like to join in, you can go to heroicvoice.com/gym and enter through there. That's heroicvoice.com/gym. You can sign up for the newsletter, get free downloads, ton of information. But join us on Thursdays from 12 to 1 if you want to get a little tweak on your presentation skills. Zoe, you're an amazing guest. You're an amazing friend. Thank you for talking with me today. I'm sure I'd love to have you back. Our listeners would love to have you back, but can't thank you enough. You're amazing. We'll be seeing each other soon because we work together, but we'll also be seeing the rest of you here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for Silicon Valley Influence, as well as the Presentation Gym. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Bye, everyone.